There comes a point in your life where words aren't enough, arguments aren't enough, excuses aren't enough. You can try to explain yourself to people. You can try to justify your dreams. You can try to convince those who doubt you. But at the end of the day, the most powerful response you'll ever give is not with your mouth. It's with your results. People will laugh at you. They'll tell you you're not ready. They'll say you don't have what it takes. They'll roll their eyes, mock your vision, and whisper about you behind your back. But here's the truth. You don't need to fight them. You don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to waste your energy proving your worth to people who don't even believe in their own. You kill them with success. Every early morning you grind, every late night you sacrifice, every single ounce of energy you pour into your growth, it stacks up. And while they're talking, you're building. While they're doubting, you're preparing. While they're pointing fingers, you're sharpening your craft. Success has a way of silencing critics. It doesn't need a speech. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't need applause. Success is undeniable. Success walks into a room and commands respect without a single word being spoken. When you walk into your future, when you walk into the reality you've been creating with your blood, sweat, and tears, those same people who doubted you will have no choice but to watch. But here's the thing. You're not doing it to spite them. You're not doing it to throw it in their face. You're doing it because greatness is your responsibility. You're doing it because life gave you potential, and wasting that potential is the greatest insult you could ever give to yourself. The question is, how badly do you want it? How much are you willing to endure? Are you willing to step into discomfort, to push past rejection, to keep moving when everything in you screams to quit? Because if you are, the payoff is extraordinary. Not only do you achieve the vision, but you earn the kind of power no one can take away from you. The power of knowing you didn't just dream it, you lived it. Your discipline is louder than their doubt. Your progress is louder than their louder. Your results are louder than their words. So stop chasing approval. Stop trying to win debates with people who will never see your vision. Don't waste energy proving yourself in conversations. Prove yourself through transformation. Let your life speak. Let your growth speak. Let your victories speak. Because when you rise, when you break through, when you build a life that inspires, that's when you've won. That's when the noise fades. That's when you kill them with success. Silence critics, not with arguments, but with undeniable results. Because no matter how convincing your words may seem, they will always be met with resistance by those who have already decided not to believe in you. And if you spend your life trying to argue with people who are committed to misunderstanding you, you'll waste your energy, your spirit, and your time, which are the very resources you need to fuel your growth. So instead of trying to win them over with explanations, you must shift your focus early toward execution, because results are the ultimate language that no one can deny. And the beautiful thing about results is that they cannot be debated. They stand on their own. They speak louder than any argument you could ever form. And they hold a power that silences critics without you ever having to raise your voice. Think about it. When someone tells you that you're not capable, if you argue, you enter their arena, you play their game. And they always win because their goal is not to be convinced. Their goal is to keep you stuck in defense. But when you start defending and start producing, the battlefield changes. It's no longer about opinions. It's about evidence, and evidence is undeniable. Evidence is when you walk in healthier, stronger, wealthier, more skilled, more confident, and they can no longer say the same things they once did. Evidence is when you've transformed your body, your mind, your career, your relationships, while they are still standing where they've always been. Evidence is when you no longer need to explain yourself because the reality you've built explains everything for you. You see, people project their own limitations onto you. When they say you can't do it, what they're really saying is they can't do it when they doubt your dream. It's because they've already abandoned theirs when they try to box you in. It's because they've locked themselves inside their own box, and if you argue with them, you validate their limits. But if you move beyond them, you expose the truth of their small thinking, and that's why results are so powerful, because they don't just elevate you, they dismantle lies. They turn every "you can't" into living proof that you could, and every "who's impossible" into an example of what's possible. And results are not only for the critics, results are for you, because every step forward you take is a reminder that you are capable. Every milestone you hit proves to yourself that your vision wasn't a fantasy. It was a calling. Every breakthrough you achieve strengthens your belief that you were right to keep going even when no one else believed. And that kind of self-validation is priceless, because once you have that, no outside voice can sway you. No opinion can shake you, and no criticism can penetrate the armor of your proven track record. But here's what you must understand. Results don't come by accident. They don't come by hoping. They don't come by wishing. They come by choosing to turn away from distractions and focusing entirely on building. They come by saying less and doing more, by trading arguments for actions, by replacing excuses with execution, and by deciding that the greatest speech you'll ever give is the life you're willing to live, because every time you act, every time you produce, every time you deliver, you are writing a statement that is louder and stronger than any rebuttal you could ever prepare. And yes, the critics will still talk. Even when you're winning, even when you're rising, even when you're proving them wrong, they'll still whisper, still criticize, still question. But the difference is those whispers become irrelevant when your life is shouting success, when your growth is undeniable, when your achievements are standing tall. Those whispers get drowned out because while they're busy talking, you're busy thriving. While they're gossiping, you're growing. While they're stuck, you're moving forward. And momentum makes their words meaningless because you can't stop someone who refuses to stop producing. So every time you feel tempted to explain yourself, to defend yourself, to argue with someone who doesn't see your vision, stop and remind yourself that your results are the only answer you need to give. Remind yourself that silence paired with progress is the deadliest combination, because it doesn't give the critic what they want, which is your attention, and it gives you exactly what you need, which is focus on your mission, because focus builds success, and success silences everything else. When you commit to this mindset, you begin to live differently. You stop wasting words. You stop chasing validation. You stop needing to be understood. And you start realizing that the less you speak about what you're going to do and the more you do it, the faster you move, because you're not draining energy in the wrong places. You're channeling all of it into building. And soon enough, you'll look up and see that you've arrived at a place where you no longer even care what the critics say, because their voices have faded in the shadow of your accomplishments, and you've proven not only to them, but most importantly to yourself, that you were never defined by their words. You were always defined by your results. While others waste energy doubting you, invest energy in building yourself, because every moment you spend entertaining their opinions, you're draining the fuel you could be using to climb higher. And the truth is, people will always have something to say, no matter what you do. If you aim high, they'll say you're dreaming too big. If you aim small, they'll say you lack ambition. If you move fast, they'll say you're reckless. If you move slow, they'll say you're lazy. So there is no winning with people who are determined to doubt, but there is winning with yourself when you redirect all that wasted energy back into the work that matters, the growth that transforms you, the habits that elevate you, and the results that change everything. Think about how much energy people spend worrying about what others think, worrying about being judged, worrying about whether they measure up, and think about how much of that energy could be transformed into action if it were invested differently, because the doubters are not the ones paying your bills. They're not the ones carrying your burdens. They're not the ones walking your path. So why give them the authority to hold power over your focus when that focus is the very thing that builds your future? Why waste your power on arguments when you could be multiplying your power through consistency, skill building, and relentless pursuit of what you want? The doubters are loud in the beginning. They'll mock you. They'll criticize you. They'll question your choices. And the temptation will be to defend yourself, to explain, to prove your worth with words. But words don't change minds. They rarely convince those who have already decided not to see your vision. So instead of playing their game, you play yours. You build quietly. You prepare when no one is watching. You show up every single day with discipline. And over time, something begins to shift because results accumulate, growth compounds, momentum builds, and eventually your reality becomes so different from theirs that their words no longer even touch you. The greatest builders, the greatest achievers, the ones who break through and rise above, they all learned to take that energy that could have been wasted on critics and redirect it inward. They used it as fuel. They used it to sharpen their edge, to deepen their focus, to strengthen their resolve. Because when you stop wasting energy trying to fight shadows, you start lighting fires that illuminate the way forward. And those fires keep you moving even when things get difficult, even when the journey feels long, because your energy isn't being diluted, it's being invested, and invested energy always grows into something bigger. There will be moments when doubt comes not just from others, but from within yourself. Your own voice will echo the criticisms you've heard, and that's when it matters most, where you choose to direct your energy, because you can feed the doubt or you can feed the discipline. You can give in to hesitation, or you can give in to action. And every time you choose action, you strengthen your foundation. Every time you choose to invest in yourself rather than argue with others, you move further ahead, and slowly you build not just results, but a version of yourself that is unshakable, because you've trained yourself to stop wasting what you have on what doesn't matter. Investing energy in building yourself means more than just working on your craft. It means working on your mind, sharpening your mindset so that you can't be swayed by negativity. It means conditioning your body so that you have the stamina to keep going when others would quit. It means feeding your spirit with the right influences, the right environments, the right people who lift you higher. And when you do this, your energy doesn't just carry you forward. It attracts opportunities. It opens doors. It creates momentum that doubters can't stop, because their doubt has no power in the presence of undeniable growth. The irony is that those who doubt you waste their own energy too, because while you're moving forward, they're stuck in circles of gossip and judgment. While you're stacking bricks on your foundation, they're tearing down imaginary structures in their minds. While you're evolving, they're standing still. And one day, they'll look up and realize that while they spent years talking about what you couldn't do, you spent years doing it, and now the gap between you and them is too wide for their words to cross. But that gap wasn't created by chance. It was created by where you chose to invest your energy. By refusing to waste it where it doesn't grow, the world belongs to those who channel their energy into creation rather than destruction, into progress rather than complaint, into building rather than doubting. And every single day you have a choice. Will you let their words distract you, or will you let your actions define you? Will you pour your limited energy into battles that can't be won, or will you pour it into building a life that can't be denied? Because when you choose the latter, you not only silence the doubters, you inspire others. You become the proof that investing in yourself pays off, that discipline and persistence are stronger than criticism, that energy directed inward is infinitely more powerful than energy wasted outward. And that's the difference between those who rise and those who stay behind. Not talent, not luck, but focus. The ability to guard their energy, to spend it wisely, to put it into the things that matter. And when you live that way, you don't just succeed, you transform, you elevate. And you prove that doubt is powerless in the presence of a relentless builder who refuses to waste even a drop of energy on anything less than growth. Discipline, consistency, and relentless action speak louder than any words, because words can inspire, they can encourage, they can paint a vision of what's possible. But without action, they dissolve into the air. Without discipline, they fade into wishful thinking. Without consistency, they remain unfinished promises whispered into the void. And the truth is that the world is not moved by what you say you will do. It is moved by what you actually do. And the way you prove yourself, the way you build credibility, the way you create undeniable momentum is through showing up day after day, choice after choice, moment after moment, refusing to bend to excuses, refusing to surrender to distraction. Refusing to let your feelings dictate your actions. Discipline is not glamorous. It is not always exciting, and it rarely feels convenient. Discipline is waking up when you don't want to, pushing yourself when no one is watching, doing the work when no one is applauding. Discipline is the quiet power that builds empires brick by brick while others are still waiting for the perfect moment. And the reason discipline speaks louder than words is because it builds proof that you can be trusted with your own dreams, proof that you can honor your commitments, proof that when you say you want something, you mean it enough to back it with sacrifice and effort. And that proof doesn't need to be shouted. It shows itself in the way your life transforms. Consistency is the multiplier, because discipline practiced once doesn't change you. It is discipline practiced over and over, long after the excitement wears off, that rewires your habits, reshapes your character, and redefines your future. Consistency is the difference between those who dabble and those who dominate, because anyone can work hard for a day, anyone can stay focused for a week, but it is the one who remains committed for months, for years, for decades, who builds something unshakable. Consistency compounds. It turns small actions into unstoppable momentum. It transforms daily effort into extraordinary outcomes. And when you remain consistent, people no longer need to hear you talk about your goals. They can see the steady climb, the constant progress, the undeniable results. Relentless action is what ties it all together, because discipline creates the standard. Consistency maintains the rhythm, but relentless action is the force that refuses to stop no matter how many times you fall, no matter how many setbacks you face, no matter how many obstacles rise up in your path. Relentless action means you don't quit when it gets uncomfortable. You don't retreat when it gets painful. You don't stall when it gets uncertain. Relentless action says, no matter how many times I fail, I will rise again. No matter how heavy the burden, I will carry it further. No matter how steep the climb, I will keep ascending. And that persistence builds a reputation, not through words, not through promises, but through undeniable evidence that you are someone who cannot be broken by circumstances. And here is the truth most people don't want to face. Words are easy. Anyone can say they want to succeed. Anyone can say they want to change. Anyone can talk about their dreams, but few are willing to put in the discipline required to earn it. Few are willing to show up with consistency when the excitement dies. Few are willing to take relentless action when everything feels stacked against them. And that is why so many remain stuck, because they substitute talking for doing. They confuse inspiration for execution. They believe wanting is the same as working, and they forget that success has never listened to what people say. It only listens to what people do when you embody discipline, consistency, and relentless action. You don't need to announce it. People will notice. They'll notice the changes in your results. They'll notice the shifts in your energy. They'll notice the progress that can't be hidden. And in time, they'll have no choice but to respect it, because results can't be denied. You can debate opinions. You can question intentions. But you can't argue with transformation. You can't argue with evidence. You can't argue with someone who is living proof of what discipline, consistency, and action can create. This is why the most powerful people, the most impactful leaders, the most inspiring examples are often not the loudest. They are the ones who simply live in alignment with their values, who simply show up no matter what, who simply do the work every day until the work speaks for itself. And when the work speaks, it echoes louder than any speech. It carries weight that words never could. It inspires without needing to persuade, because people are drawn not to what you say, but to who you become. And who you become is forged through the fire of discipline, consistency, and relentless action. And this is not about perfection. It's not about never slipping, never stumbling, never making mistakes. It's about refusing to let those slips define you, refusing to let those stumbles keep you down, refusing to let mistakes stop you, because the disciplined person gets back up. The consistent person stays the course. The relentless person keeps moving. And that resilience is what creates transformation, not overnight, not in a week, but over time, until one day you look back and realize that the life you're living now was built through thousands of small acts of discipline, thousands of consistent choices, thousands of relentless actions that stack together into something monumental. So when you are tempted to talk about what you're going to do, remind yourself that your actions will always be more powerful. When you feel like defending yourself against doubt, remind yourself that your consistency will silence the critics. When you feel like giving up, remind yourself that relentless action will always outlast temporary pain, because words fade, but results remain, and discipline, consistency, and relentless action will always speak louder than anything you could ever say. Greatness isn't about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right. Because when you live your life trying to answer your critics, you hand them the power to define your path, you make them the center of your story, and every step you take becomes a reaction instead of an intention. But when you shift the focus inward, when you decide that the only person you're competing against is the version of yourself from yesterday, then everything changes, because greatness is not built on revenge. It is not built on validation. It is built on alignment. It is built on honoring the potential you've been given. It is built on keeping the promises you make to yourself. And that is where the deepest fulfillment is found. The truth is, no matter how much you achieve, there will always be those who refuse to acknowledge it. There will always be those who move the goalposts, who dismiss your progress, who look for flaws. And if you spend your life chasing their approval, you'll never find peace, because you'll be trapped in a game that can't be won. But when you shift from external to internal, when you say my standard is not what others think, but what I know I'm capable of, you begin to build a foundation that cannot be shaken, because no one else controls it. No one else defines it. It belongs entirely to you. Proving yourself right means trusting your vision, even when no one else can see it. It means believing that the fire inside you is there for a reason. It means choosing to act on your conviction instead of bowing to doubt. And that requires courage, because it's easier to chase the applause. It's easier to let the critics dictate your moves. It's easier to seek validation outside of yourself. But greatness was never meant to be easy. Greatness demands that you dig deeper, that you rise higher, that you hold yourself accountable to the potential you know you carry, even when no one else recognizes it. When you stop trying to prove them wrong, you free yourself from the endless cycle of comparison, You stop measuring your worth against their limitations. You stop letting their opinions shape your identity, and you begin to measure your success by the standards that matter. Did I give everything I had today? Did I honor my purpose? Did I show up with discipline? Did I grow? Did I push myself past the comfort zone? Did I do the thing I said I would do? And if the answer is yes, then you are proving yourself right. You are validating your own belief. And that validation is far more powerful than anything the outside world could ever give you, because the truth is, even if you prove them wrong, what then? Their doubt might fade for a moment, but then they'll find something else to criticize, and soon you'll find yourself chasing after their approval again. But when you prove yourself right, when you keep stacking wins that align with your own vision, their opinions lose all weight. Their words no longer carry power, because you know the truth. You've lived the evidence. You've shown yourself that you were capable, and that knowledge can't be taken away. It becomes part of your identity. It becomes fuel for the next step, the next dream, the next level. Greatness is not about beating others. It's about becoming your highest self. It's about fulfilling the potential that was placed within you. It's about refusing to settle, refusing to compromise your standards, refusing to live small when you were born to live fully. And the only way to do that is to focus inward, to set your own bar, to run your own race, to hold yourself accountable, not to their expectations, but to your own vision. And when you live that way, you stop being distracted by noise, because your eyes are locked on the mission, your heart is locked on the purpose, your energy is locked on the work. This is why so many people fail to find greatness, not because they aren't capable, but because they spend their lives chasing shadows, trying to prove their worth to people who never intended to see it, chasing applause that never lasts, chasing validation that evaporates as quickly as it comes. And in that chase, they forget the real battle, the battle within themselves, the battle to conquer their fear, the battle to overcome their self-doubt, the battle to remain disciplined when no one is watching, the battle to stay consistent when motivation fades, the battle to rise every time they fall. And that is the battle that produces greatness. Because once you win within, you no longer need to win outside. Proving yourself right is about integrity. It's about doing what you said you would do, even when it's hard, even when no one notices, even when no one claps, because the clapping is not the goal. The growth is the goal. The fulfillment is the goal. The impact is the goal. And that impact starts with you. It starts with the way you show up for yourself, because if you can't prove yourself right, you'll always be chasing someone else's version of success. But if you can truly validate your own belief through action, then you become unstoppable, because you no longer need permission. You no longer need validation. You no longer need the doubters, the critics, the applause. You are driven by something deeper, something stronger, something unshakable. And when you live like that, something remarkable happens. You inspire others, not because you set out to prove them wrong, but because you showed them what it looks like to prove yourself right. You become an example of what is possible when someone commits fully to their vision. You become living proof that greatness is not about chasing outside approval, but about honoring inner potential. And that example is more powerful than any argument, more powerful than any debate, more powerful than any defense you could ever make. The most powerful revenge is living the life they said you could never have, because nothing cuts deeper than seeing someone rise above every limitation, every insult, every doubt, and every barrier that was placed in their path. And no amount of arguing, no amount of debating, no amount of defending yourself could ever deliver the same impact as simply becoming the very thing they swore you would never be. Because when you create a life of success, fulfillment, strength, and freedom, you don't just silence their voices, you render them irrelevant. And the sweetest part is that you didn't even have to waste time trying to fight them. You simply focused on building, and your results spoke for you. People will underestimate you. They'll box you in. They'll define you by your mistakes. They'll laugh at your dreams. They'll say you're not smart enough, not strong enough, not disciplined enough, not worthy enough. And every time they do, you'll feel the temptation to fight back with words, to demand their respect, to prove them wrong in the moment. But that is energy wasted, because you don't win by stooping to their level. You win by rising to your own. You win by outgrowing their expectations. You win by building a life so undeniable that they can't ignore it. You win by becoming everything they said you couldn't, and doing it without needing their approval. Revenge, in its true sense, is not about destruction. It's about construction. It's not about tearing someone else down. It's about elevating yourself to heights they never imagined you could reach. It's about becoming so strong, so capable, so resilient, so successful that their words dissolve in the shadow of your reality. And when you live like that, you take back all the power you once gave away, You take back the authority you handed to doubters. You take back control of your narrative, because now the story is not about what they said. It's about what you did. It's about how you took every insult, every rejection, every laugh, every doubt, and turned it into fuel for your fire. The beauty of living the life they said you could never have is that you don't just prove something to them. You prove something to yourself. You prove that your belief was stronger than their disbelief. Your vision was greater than their limitations. Your persistence was tougher than their resistance. And once you've proven that to yourself, you no longer even care about revenge, because by the time you arrive, you realize that the life you've built is the reward. The freedom you now live in is the victory. The strength you now carry is the proof, and their voices no longer matter because you've risen so far above them that their words can't even reach you. Every long night you choose to keep going. Every morning you choose discipline over comfort. Every setback you choose to rise from, every challenge you choose to embrace, every sacrifice you choose to make, all of it stacks up into something they said was impossible. And little by little, you're no longer defined by their doubt. You're defined by your resilience. You're defined by your consistency. You're defined by the results you've earned. And when that reality becomes undeniable, you've delivered the ultimate revenge without ever having to lift a finger against them, because nothing is louder than success. Nothing is sharper than results. Nothing is more humbling to a critic than watching someone they dismissed achieve everything they said couldn't be done. But to live this way, you must make a choice. You must decide that you will not be broken by rejection. You must decide that you will not be limited by small minds. You must decide that you will not waste your life seeking the approval of those who never believed in you to begin with. You must decide that the only answer you'll ever give is your growth, your progress, your evolution, your success, because that answer is permanent. That answer is undeniable. That answer can't be debated. And every step you take toward that life is another blow to the voices that tried to keep you small. The most powerful revenge is not slamming the door in their face. It's opening the door to a world they said you'd never step into. It's walking into rooms they told you were out of reach. It's building relationships, wealth, health, strength, and influence they claimed you weren't capable of. It's becoming the kind of person they never imagined you could be. And the irony is, by the time you arrive, you no longer even need revenge, because their presence no longer matters. Their opinions no longer hold weight. Their words no longer sting. You've risen so high that what once hurt you now feels irrelevant, and the life you're living is more satisfying than any argument you could have had. That is why the greatest use of your pain, your rejection, your disappointment is to turn it into fuel, to take every no and make it a reason to keep pushing, to take every insult and make it a reason to keep working, to take every doubt and make it a reason to stay consistent. Because if you can channel that energy into building, if you can transform that negativity into drive, then you are unstoppable. And eventually you'll look back and realize that those who doubted you were actually part of the reason you're standing where you are, because without their resistance, you might not have found the strength to rise this high. So don't waste time seeking revenge in the form of arguments. Don't waste time trying to get even with words or actions that drag you down. Instead, commit to creating, commit to growing, commit to rising, commit to becoming everything they said you couldn't be. And when you arrive, when you look around and see the life you've built, you'll understand that this was the most powerful revenge of all. Because while they were doubting, you were building. While they were laughing, you were working. While they were resisting, you were persisting. And now you are living the undeniable proof that they were wrong all along.